Hello friends, welcome to Timeless Tagore, Chiroshoka, a series of conversations brought to you by the Tagoreans UK, the oldest Bengali cultural organization in the UK. In this conversation series, we will introduce you to various personalities who have helped to keep Tagore truly timeless in their respective fields. My guest in today's episode is a dear friend and a remarkably talented and versatile singer. Born and raised in Toronto, Canada, he learned the piano, was trained in Indian classical music and Rabindrasangeet from a very young age. A student of business studies and law, he moved to India to pursue his passion for Indian classical music and Rabindrasangeet, where he continued to train with leading exponents in both these fields of music. After a hugely successful music career in Kolkata, he moved to London to begin a new chapter in his musical career. Graduating with distinction from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama with a MA in Music Theatre, he has performed in path-breaking productions and in prestigious venues such as London Coliseum, Minack Theatre, and his first ever association with the Tagoreans at Shakespeare's Globe. I'm of course talking about none other than Aniruddha Kumar Ghoshal, popularly known as Sasha. A very warm welcome to you, Sasha. It's lovely to have you here with us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Gigi.
Let me start by asking you about your early musical training. You grew up in Canada, so how did you get interested in Indian music from such a young age in a foreign land?
I guess I've always just been musical, kind of by birth. I've always liked music, and I'd say that my parents are the biggest influence in that way, especially my mother, who she herself, when she was young, was into singing and dancing and everything. So she thought that it would be good to kind of push me in that direction. My father has always loved, my family on both sides are very much into the arts. So they put me into piano classes. I learned in the Royal Conservatory. On top of that, in Toronto, we were very lucky to have wonderful trainers. So there was late Srimati Shanti Chakraborty, who was my first classical guru, and she was a Tansen Award recipient. So I started at a very young age learning from somebody like her, and that was a blessing itself. And then on top of that, I, in school, was just always into the operettas and, rehearsing for school plays and everything like that. Then Sri Ashok Dash, late Sri Ashok Dash, he introduced me to Rabindrasangeet at the Toronto Gita School of Music. And that was an affiliation of the Gita School of Music in Kolkata. And that's when I really fell in love with what I used to read. It's very interesting because I had an uncle, my Jetu, Amader Shopche Bodo Jetu. He was an avid Rabindrik man. He was a scientist by profession, but he loved Rabindranath's works, and I'd call him a walking encyclopedia on Rabindranath. And his house was a library of all of Rabindranath's works. And so, I would open up little books when I would sleep over at their house, and thou hast made me endless, such is thy pleasure. And it just opened up a whole world. So in tandem with these Ganer classes that I was going to, and I remember in school, I'd be telling people, what did you do on the weekend? And I'd say, I just we went to a party and everything. But actually when I was going to Ganer class. So that in tandem with just family, it just became a passion that I never got over.
That sounds really interesting, Sasha. So how did your musical journey develop in India?
In India, that's an interesting one because you might know that my formal academic training is actually first I went to business school, then I went to law school at Osgoode Hall. And it was actually in the summers, that I luckily was working at a law firm actually for the summers called DSF. And there was a Bengali lady there, Nondita Mashi, Srimati Nondita Shen, and she had gotten me the interview at that law firm. And it was wonderful because they gave me the time to actually go to India. So I had received something called the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute scholarship. And I had gone then to learn classical music from Pandit Arun Bhaduri, from Pandit Phalguni Mitro, and Rabindrasangeet from Mashi, Srimati Promita Mullik. And I was doing research on classical influences on Rabindrasangeet and Western influences on Rabindrasangeet. So it was kind of in that way that I met these gurus and a formal sort of more formal education in music had started in India. And at that time, I remember when I first got there, this would be around 2004, Shagodadi, who the Tagoreans had interviewed a while back, she had done a concert in Toronto. And I remember that I really was interested in meeting her. And so I called her up and I said, would you be willing to meet with me? I'd love to learn 2 songs from you, actually, that you had sung there. Ke Jani To Tumi Dakibe Amare was one of them. It's still ringing in my ears, actually, her version. But she invited me over to her place and she said, I'd like to record your voice. And then she took me to a recording studio and she got a few recordings done just so that she could kind of distribute it along. Now, in the meantime, I was also learning from Promita Mashi. And Promita Mashi said, well, if the time has come, if you're actually serious about this, then let's invite somebody over here from HMV. It was a gentleman named Shubhajit Rai. And he had come and then he had said, I think we're going to do a recording. So that was in 2005 that my first album from HMV was released. And I slowly started getting these invitations to sing around the place. And I guess that's when I realized, I don't know if the law is for me. I think I love doing this much more. And of course, Mashi was saying, I don't think that's the best idea. You don't know what the world is like here. But Shagodadi was saying, are you sure you want to study law? Like, I think this is what you need to be doing. So this is kind of, but Mashi in the end, ended up being very supportive. And, in tandem with my education, I just kept going back to India to get this formal training.
You mentioned the song Ke Jani To Tumi Dakibe Amare. Now, that is a song very, very close to my heart. Amra ki please du line shunte pari.
We've done it in class, haven't we? Ha. Ke jani to tumi dakibe amare chilam nidra mogono ke jani to tumi dakibe amare chilam nidra mogono সংসার মোরে মহামোহ ঘোরে সংসার মোরে মহামোহ ঘোরে ছিল সদা ঘিরে সঘন কে জানিত তুমি ডাকিবে আমারে ছিলাম নিদ্রা মগ্ন.
Aha, Sasha, অপূর্ব শোনালো. Thank you so much for keeping my request.
My pleasure.
So that's a huge leap, Sasha, from a legal career in Canada to a Rabindrasangeet career in Kolkata. And it's not an easy decision to make. And just tell us about some of your memorable moments of your early Rabindrasangeet career in Kolkata.
There's so many. So there's a lot that can be said because I just remember it was being immersed in a completely different culture. Actually, even though I visit India frequently, and from childhood, living there, visiting and living, they're two completely different universes. So the first thing that I remember is the reaction of somebody who's essentially an outsider coming into it is a pretty tight-knit small community, the Rabindrasangeet world, right? And then here you have this outsider. Now I'm not complaining because I at the same time will say that I was very much embraced by this incredible warmth of the people in Kolkata. So I'm eternally grateful for that. But there's just certain things, there's certain ways you can't speak to, say, your elders or to somebody who's a stranger. There's certain, dare I say, politicking, that has to go on that I wasn't at all aware of. So I would say the wrong thing at the wrong time, inevitably. So I remember these things. Now, I also remember just the opportunities of, being able to perform on stages like Kala Mandir and Ravindra Sadan. So the very first opportunity I remember was my time at Boikali under Promita Mollik Mashi. And she had approached me to say, would you like to do Balmiki Pratibha? Now, I had seen Balmiki Pratibha, and I was thinking that she meant, I'm sitting behind a barrier and I'm just singing the song and somebody's going to be dancing. But no, she was doing Giti Natto, Balmiki Pratibha. And in Kolkata, it wasn't very common, especially at that time, to be doing that. We had really gone into this Nitto Natto phase where people weren't taking the risk of doing Giti Natto, live singing and acting. And so I really didn't know because at that time I couldn't read Bengali at all. And so taking on a part like that seemed like a huge challenge. And I kind of told her, I don't know if I can do it. And she said, I think you can do it. So let's have you do it. And I remember being told, about certain mannerisms I have. One reviewer, the reviews were largely positive and wonderful. It really got me passionate about acting on stage and singing. But I remember one reviewer had said, it was a fantastic performance, but there's a Western mannerism in some of his parts. And I remember Mashi, Promita Mollik, and Sri Topon Mollik, Mesho, who I call my Natto Guru, them telling me, do you realize that, you shrug on stage? I said, that's no way. I don't believe that I did that. But apparently I did. So just kind of overcoming those little things. I also remember the excitement of going into the studio at HMV and kind of innovating like new ways at that time with people like Protush Bandopadhyay on Sharod and Rahul Chatterjee. I remember going into the studio and us doing a jam session where essentially there was no real arrangement. So we were kind of just discussing what can we do here, what second track, what third track can we put to kind of really enrichen this soundscape. So things like that. I remember the Kobipokkos and kind of going from pandal to pandal and sweating buckets and just wanting the whole day to end, but at the same time you've given your word that, I'll be there in Salt Lake and then I'll be there in South Calcutta, then I'll be there in Behala, and the craze of that time and people, kind of fighting who's going to go first and no, I got here before, so I have to, no, I'm at Salt Lake, all of that. I remember the sheer excitement of slowly starting to get invitations to, Delhi and Bombay and just meeting people backstage who I never thought that I would meet before, other celebrities. So I'm sure I'm forgetting so much, but these are the things that immediately come to my mind when I think about that time.
Wow, that sounds amazing. But you mentioned Balmiki Pratibha. Now you can't get away by not singing a song from Balmiki Pratibha. You have to, Sasha.
Well, you know why I love Balmiki Pratibha and why I'm sure you also love these dance tracks. I mean, Rabindranath at the age of 19, he had blended not only, Indian classical music into his operettas, but he also had used, Western. And so I'm just thinking about this one song. Ranga Podo Poddo Juge Pranami Go Bhavo Dara Aji Ghoro Nishithe also have Tobe ai shobe ai, tobe ai shobe ai, tobe ঢাল সুরা ঢাল সুরা ঢাল 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 দয়া মায়া কোন ছাড় ছাড় খার হোক কে বা কাঁদে কার তরে হা 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 তবে আন তলোয়ার আন তলোয়ার তবে আন বরষা আন দেখি ঢাল আগে পেটে কিছু ঢাল পরে পিঠে নেবি ঢাল ha 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 ha. And then Rabindranath heard songs like of all the wives is there you know ho ho yo ho my lads yo ho tate shune the love for a wife, a sailor's love for his wife, translates to the love for Ma Kali. Kali Kali bolo re aaj bolo ho 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 bolo ho বলো নামের জোরে সাধিব কাজ বলো হো 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 বলো হো বলো হো ওই ঘোর মত্ত করে নৃত্য রঙ্গ মাঝারে ওই লক্ষ লক্ষ যক্ষ রক্ষ ঘেরি শ্যামারে ওই লট্ট পট্ট কেশ অট্ট অট্ট হাসে রে হা 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 আরে বল রে শ্যামা মায়ের জয় 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 আরে বল রে শ্যামা মায়ের জয় 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 আরে বল রে শ্যামা মায়ের জয়
দারুণ দারুণ Sasha, that really left me speechless. অসাধারণ লাগলো মানে অসাধারণ বললেও কম বলা হয় সত্যি তাই একদম জানো this reminded me of the unique work that you did when enacting all the characters of Balmiki Pratibha.
That was later on in the album that I had done.
Such a awesome piece of work.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you liked that.
Now, obviously coming to Kolkata, tomar Rabindrasangeet career, like the audience in Kolkata, I know is very appreciative, no doubt, but very critical at the same time. So, what were the challenges that you faced?
Like I said, for the vast majority of my experiences, it's been so positive, but there's no doubt that there's that. It's a very dog-eat-dog world, right? I guess everybody's trying to make it, and there's only few, places really where you can build a career out of something like this. So I think the challenge that I faced was, again, as I said, as being an outsider, it's not like I had a college that I went to in Kolkata where, I could sing at the college fest. People don't know who I am. And then here comes this guy with an accent and, he's singing Rabindrasangeet of all things. So it's kind of weird. I remember some critics, like, what one person said when he walks onto the stage, he looks like a rap artist. I don't know why. I had maybe a little bit of spiky hair, but other than that, I don't see how I look like a rap artist. What else? Maybe some, so there are different gharanas, I guess we can say. And learning from Promita Mashi, you have this really Shanti-Niketani style. I think that is a huge influence, something that, she would have learned from Shantidev Ghosh and Suchitra Mitro, people like these stalwarts. And that style might not be for everybody. So I think that I take after that style, and some people might say, it seems a little bit shouty to me, and perhaps, it might be that, sometimes I am a little bit loud. So those kinds of criticisms are there. But other than that, I have to say that I just received and I went at a very lucky time as well. So it was, if we look at now around 2011, that was the 150th year of Rabindranath. And so many concerts were happening, and I remember all of a sudden just, the phone is ringing quite frequently, and being invited all around, and being featured on like Graffiti magazine, on the cover of Graffiti magazine. I think I'm the only Rabindrasangeet artist to ever have been on that. So it was an overwhelming appreciation and just people encouraging somebody. I think I heard that much more often, that here's this guy who was born and raised outside of India, and he's singing Rabindrasangeet, and he loves Rabindrasangeet. I mean, how often do you see that? So you take the criticism with, a grain of salt, and you kind of don't even pay attention to it. I mean, I remember there was one concert where I was supposed to sing, but I couldn't make it because I had a fever. And then after that, the critic had written, Sasha still has a bit of a way to go, but the star of the night was and I didn't even go to that show. So you see how criticism sometimes can be completely false as well. So I think criticism is kind of dying. The few critics that I remember who I learned from their criticisms, people like Sri Subhash Chaudhuri, who would at one time embrace you, but also point out, something that, I think you could have gone a little bit more into depth into this lyric instead of just, singing it romantically. And I would take those on. I appreciate criticism like that. So the sad thing is that we're losing people like that, and there aren't too many people who know what they're talking about. But if it's criticism like that, then I welcome it to this day.
Well, Sasha, I can imagine what a challenging path that must have been for you. Like
just a little bit, yeah.
So tell me, how did you satisfy on one hand the Rabindrasangeet purists, and on the other hand, making Rabindrasangeet more accessible to a wider audience?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I'm very much torn in between two worlds, right? So I very much believe that we should stick to certain traditions and maintain the integrity of Rabindrasangeet. So when it comes to the notation, when it comes to the kind of instrumentation that you're using, it really should be based on what the song is, what the meaning of the song is, reading it and everything. And that's why, again, I find myself so fortunate to have found somebody like Promita Mashi to guide me all throughout. So I had somebody like her, who could point out if I was making a mistake, simple as that. But on top of that, I was just so lucky to have met some people who are considered themselves the be-all, end-all. So for example, somebody like Srimati Suchitra Mashi, I unfortunately didn't have too much time with her, but I did have one amazing experience where, she was a mentor to Chikudi, Shudeshna Chatterjee's Chitrangada that she had put on at Robindra Sadan. And they were looking for somebody to sing the role of Arjun. And I remember at that time, Sri Shubir Sarkar, Laltu Kaku, he had said, well, have you heard this new fellow? His name is Sasha. Shall I bring him over? So brought me over to Suchitra Mashi's house. And there she is, sitting, the living legend in front of me. And she says, without further ado, let's start the rehearsal. And so just these little lessons that you learn, so we're starting, gudu 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 ghano megho goroje parbato shikhare arunne tamus chhaya মুখরণীর ঝড় কল কল্লোলে ব্যাধের চরণ ধ্বনি শুনিতে না পাই ভীরু হরিণ দম্পতি চিত্র ব্যাঘ্র পদনখ ছিন্ন রেখা শ্রেণী রেখে গেছে ওই পথে পঙ্ক পরে দিয়ে গেছে পদে পদে গুহার সন্ধান গুরু 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 ঘন মেঘ গরজে পর্বত শিখরে অরণ্যে তমস ছায়া অহো কি দুঃসহ স্পর্ধা অর্জুনে যে করে অশ্রদ্ধা সে কোনখানে পাবে তার আশ্রয়. And I remember the Sharolipi at that time was অর্জুনে যে করে অশ্রদ্ধা. And then Suchitra Mashi stopped me and said, দাঁড়াও বাবা, তুমি কি করলে এখানে? যে আমি স্বরলিপিটা করছিলাম. বাবা, স্বরলিপি আমার মাথায়. So she said, no, right now you have to give the force of an Arjun. These are the traditions that you have to learn. This is এইগুলো স্বরলিপি দেখে হয় না. So that kind of experience, meeting somebody like that and being mentored by somebody like that, in addition to the continuous training from Mashi, I think that helped me satisfy. I don't want to say satisfy. I mean, art should really be about expressing yourself and expressing a certain sentiment. So it shouldn't be about, am I ticking all the right boxes? But I think that I was always guided down the right path. But at the same time, as you said, there's, I think, a responsibility to reach as many people as possible, because the art is about connecting with other people. And so I just kept thinking that, even throughout my life, there's been so many times when other genres of music have reminded me of Rabindrasangeet, because I don't think there's a topic under the sun that Rabindranath hasn't covered. And I think that we should marry these sometimes. And so I think traditionalists would definitely say that's not the best idea, but I kind of always thought it was. And so I'm just thinking back to something that I had done. So I was one of the first people to, sorry, I think I was the first person to sing Rabindrasangeet in a place called Someplace Else. I don't know, you must have heard of it, right? The club. And it's a rock dive, right? And the way we convinced the owner that there should be Rabindrasangeet is for every Rabindrasangeet there's also a rock piece or a pop piece or something like that. And so we did something like that. And it's just about finding the common themes between a Rabindrasangeet and say a Bob Dylan song. So that's coming to my mind right now.
Please give us a demonstration.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. That's always reminded me of Shoka tare oi kadiche shokole, shono shono pita, koho kane kane, shunao prane prane, mongolo barota. Koho kane kane, shunao prane prane, mongolo barota. Koho kane kane, shunao prane prane, mongolo barota.
What a beautiful parallel between these two iconic songs.
That's what I thought,
That's
like
great.
across the ages, people have the same themes that are going on. We still have the same problems, the same prayers,
Exactly. Absolutely. Now moving on. The first time I met you in London, that was like when you were doing at the time a course in Royal School of Speech and Drama.
That's right, Royal
Yeah.
Central School of Speech and Drama. It's a long
Royal
one. So
Central
we just call
School.
it Central.
So what inspired you to give up a flourishing career in Rabindrasangeet in Kolkata and come to a completely new, like, different startup?
I don't feel like I gave up, the career in Rabindrasangeet. So like I still sing Rabindrasangeet. I, still do get invited to sing Rabindrasangeet, but I wanted a little bit more. I felt that it was a little bit claustrophobic being pigeonholed specifically into. I've always been asked, why is it that you only sing Rabindrasangeet? And it's not that I only sing Rabindrasangeet. I can kind of sing, some other genres of music, and I have some training. So it's not that I can't. It's just that among all the kinds of music, Rabindrasangeet happens to be my favorite. But at the same time, as I was telling you, in my school life, I was very much into musicals, and I've done Camelot and Into the Woods. These very kind of canon musical theater pieces, and they've always appealed to me. And Rabindranath's Giti Natto, having done Balmiki Pratibha and Kalmridaya and Mayar Khela, having done these on stage, I've always wondered why Indians don't do this more often, because we love our music, we love drama, and for some reason that culture just isn't really embedded into the scene there. It's very rare to see it. So having been a fan of musicals and knowing that theater from time immemorial, from Sanskrit times, ancient Sanskrit times, from ancient Greek times, music and theater are interlinked very strongly. You can't separate the two, actually. I wanted to do a little bit more, do a little bit more of that. And on top of that, I kind of thought it might be a way of bringing Rabindranath's works to a wider audience, because it's still by and large is stuck to the diaspora of Bengalis. So, you will be invited to London or to New York or to New Jersey, California to, sing Rabindrasangeet, but it will be Bengalis who are at those shows by and large. And so I wanted to change that. And so I kind of came with this double pronged. It would be lovely to, do some stuff on a West End stage, of course. But at the same time, I wanted to bring Rabindranath to stages like that. Why can't we, give the same musical treatment, to have an orchestra and do, Rabindranath Rikaj there? Now, I know that's a huge task and I can't do it alone, but I'm meeting people slowly. It's a very slow snail's pace process, but I have faith that it will happen. And so that's why I came here to do that. And in my master's, that's why I also did do that art of translating Rabindrasangeet, and not only Rabindrasangeet, but the musical plays, to see if it could be done, because there are several critics, including William Radici, one of my favorite translators, who had claimed that it simply can't be done. And I think that might be because he's not a singer himself. But other people I've met, like for example, even Jayantuda, some of the translations he does, because he's familiar with these songs, you kind of have an idea about the cadence that is required and what might be required in order to represent, a song. So I came with that task, and I've just scratched the surface, and let's see where it leads me.
It's interesting, Sasha, that you mentioned that one of your objectives was to bring Rabindrasangeet to a wider Western audience, and perhaps like none more like spectacular and special than your first collaboration with the Tagoreans at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in 2017.
What a memory. Yeah.
And I was privileged to share the stage with you in that project. And it was a fascinating experience for all of us, I guess, all the people who worked on the project.
Do you remember how excited we were?
I know, it was absolutely wonderful. Can you just tell us about some of the memories and the experiences like during that surrounding that project?
Yeah, well, I remember it was probably because Manushi Mashi was in India, and she had come to my concert at Nozrul Mancho, my solo concert at Nozrul Mancho put on by Bhavna Records. And after that show, I think she had approached me with Mashi and said, the Tagoreans will be contacting you about a specific show. And then she and Jayantuda had called me up. I was in India at the time. So this is after I went back from Royal Central. I was back in Kolkata, and I was applying for my visa to come to the UK. And Manushi Mashi had said, we're actually going to be doing, for the first time ever in the history of the Globe Theatre, Rabindranath's works are going to be presented there. And the Tagoreans are doing this, all thanks to Tonika Gupta, Tinnidi, who was curating the event. And so Awakening, it was Awakening, right? Tagore's Awakening.
That's right.
That we did at the Globe, Sam Wanamaker Playhouse. And the thought of doing the Bard of Bengal in the Bard's Theatre, that was extremely exciting. And then after I received the script, where I think, Jayantuda and Manushi Mashi really were excited about trying to share as much of Rabindranath as possible. So you went from I just remember we tried to cover it, and it was like really jam-packed, and one after the other, and you're singing, and Amrita's singing, and Rishi's singing, and everyone, it was just jam-packed. Manushi Mashi's doing Aprati. Manushi Mashi ended up getting a head cut, I remember. Then she came back to the theater, and it was just like a comedy of errors, but at the same time, the most beautiful drama. And that experience, why was it so precious? I think it's because it was one of the few times that I had in front of me, and I think we all had in front of us, an audience that was mostly non-Bengali, who had come out of sheer curiosity. What is this Rabindranath all about? And, do you remember the standing ovation? Because, I think we just gave it our all. And I remember after the show, Goirika Mashi, that was the one chance that I really had to meet her. And I remember sitting with her at dinner, and she was just so loving. And that's when the Tagoreans after that show, it just became something very special for me. It just became kind of a connection into this world that I was really trying to break into. And that was certainly the first kind of walk through that door. Certainly with Baitak, I've done Cadogan Hall, Tagore's Traveling Hub. I've had many wonderful opportunities here, but that one really sticks out because of that audience. And sorry, I'm just remembering everything. It's all coming back to me. I remember Goiri Gamashi telling Tinnidi, he has to get his visa done. Get his visa done. And Tinnidi saying, Ma, how am I going to get his visa done? But she was just so loving, and I know why we all miss her is because she really was like the glue of the organization, and I think that you all are doing a fantastic job kind of keeping her memory alive. So I just remember that as just like one big bundle of love. Like, as cheesy as it sounds, it was just love, love, love. And what I remember specifically exciting me the most, sorry, I forgot to mention this, is the fact that remember at the end we did the Tashid Desh presentation, and again the standing ovation from the crowd. And it excited me the most because that's precisely what in Central, my independent project, the thesis you can say, was on transcreating Tashid Dish, a scene from Tashid Dish. Right. And then that has led to further, so not only with Tagoreans, but with Baitak in Hampstead Town Hall, we've done small demonstrations. Thanks to Shongita Machi, who really took an interest in the project. That was taken then to WAC Arts, where we worked with students from various backgrounds, people who had certain challenges. And that was, again, a different way. But the main challenge and like the main passion behind it all was transcreating it, being able, because remember in at the Globe, we were doing all the dialogue in English so that the audience could understand it. Yeah. And then you have the original beauty of the Bangla songs that people just loved, But the challenge is, how do we get those songs into English? And so that's a constant,
I do remember that standing ovation very well, and what a warm response we got from the audience. And you mentioned transcreation. Can you just tell us in a bit more details? We would love to know about this transcreation process.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, Indian music has its own cadence. It has its own kind of structure. The little, what we call kaj, these kinds of things in Western music, they can sound off. So like, say you have a song like, Utol hawa laglo amar ganer toronite, Utol hawa dola lage, তোমার চঞ্চল ওই নাচের লহরীতে, উতল হাওয়া. My song on the breeze is a ship that rushes forth on crashing waves. My song on the breeze, how it sways, how it sways, how it sways, how it sways to your restless dancing raves. My song on the breeze, if the cord be slashed, if the rudder be dashed, if by rising waves it be crashed, if ahead death stirs on the seas, if ahead death stirs on the seas, I won't fear, I will take it in victory, I won't fear. My song on the breeze, this neboitare jite, I will take it, didn't work. So I had to kind of do this Western version of 1, 2, 3, 4. I will take it in victory. Things like that. That's the challenge, but it's what excites us all the time.
I can imagine. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
The other objective that you mentioned earlier, Sasha, of coming to London was to explore Western musicals.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I've always loved musicals, yeah.
So can you just tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some great experiences. So right from graduating from Central in 2016, after that, we went to the Minack Theatre, and I had the chance to do Shakespeare, a musical version of Shakespeare, where I played Polixenes, King Polixenes. And I still remember the scene, the backdrop. You're basically fighting against that backdrop at the Minack Theatre. So that was incredible. Then I'm thinking about, there was Bend It Like Beckham. And I was hired from here to fly to my hometown of Toronto, where they had the North American premiere of Bend It Like Beckham, and learning about the Punjabi culture and kind of fusing Western music with the culture of Bhangra and everything. That was a fantastic experience as well. Rumi, the musical, which happened at the Coliseum, that was a fantastic experience, because just being able to perform on that stage where you look up and you see this vast audience and everyone's just so excited and clapping, that was a phenomenal experience with beautiful music. And it was especially a very sweet experience for me, because I was meant in 2019, early 2019, to actually perform in Man of La Mancha at the London Coliseum. My visa was coming up at the time, and so I wasn't able to accept that job offer. And I had to wait until my global talent visa came in, and I was able to finally, stay here. So it was just wonderful how it all came full circle, the fact that I missed that opportunity, but it comes back. So I find in this line of work, it's always like that. You just never know when the next opportunity is going to come from. And, it has its ups and downs, and I guess the downs are more frequent than the ups, but when the ups happen, then it's something magical.
I was at the audience, as you know, London Coliseum,
Rumi,
like your Rumi. It was just absolutely fascinating.
And having that swarm of Bengalis actually, coming, and it just meant the world, actually.
Sasha, of course, everybody knows you as a performer, but Sasha, you're also a very good teacher.
So says you.
A very good teacher and trainer. So would you like to tell the audience a bit more about it?
About the teaching, yeah. I mean, I think that in this musical line, it's one of those things that you have to take on. Like eventually, it's you have to become a teacher. I think that's a part of our culture. What you learn, you have to pass on.
The Guru Shishya Parampara.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So. As we have, it was the Tagoreans who had actually started workshops of mine, and then that has become just a set of classes that we do here every other Sunday. On top of that, around the world, after the lockdown hit, that's when I really decided I'm going to resume the classes that I had started in India. And what has become easier now is the fact that, you could be teaching anyone around the world. And so, I have students in North America and in Europe and in India, and it's quite a wide age range. And teaching a child, which, I didn't used to do very often, it's a completely different challenge than somebody who, is seasoned with the culture and who is, either a naturally trained singer or who at least understands certain concepts. And then, of course, there are people who are a little elderly, and maybe you find some of the same challenges that you find with the children in those people. So it's always fulfilling in the end. It can be challenging sometimes to the point where you get frustrated, and sometimes technology doesn't always help out and you're being cut off. But that's what always reminds me that people love music so much that they're willing to go through these, hoops and overcome the challenges and enjoy music. So it's something that I love doing, the fact that it's outside of the Bengali diaspora as well, as I said, in WAC arts, teaching people who are not Bengali, Rabindrasangeet, and then taking that into the English. That's something that, again, I really want to do more and more of as time goes on. So again, I've been very lucky coming to London, amongst all of you, having all the support that you've given.
So what does the future hold for Sasha as a teacher and as a performer?
Well, as I said, it's always difficult to predict what the future holds, but there are certain plans in the works. Of course, I want to continue doing the workshops. I want to continue teaching. That's definitely going to be going on. There are some collaborations that I'm very much looking forward to right now. So the translation work, I've been approached by a gentleman called Matthew Pritchard, who's at the University of Leeds. And he himself is very much into translating Rabindranath Tagore. And so we're going to be working on that together. Bashabi Fraser is also a part of that project and will be mentored by Promita Mashi. So I'm really looking forward to that, because that not only entails translating songs and keeping them, but there'll also be workshops, and there'll be performances of musical plays. This is all, in the works. I mean, again, let's see where it goes. On top of that, as I said, you meet certain people along the way. So working with people from Central, working with people from the plays that I've done, I'm very much looking forward to doing certain collabs where they've approached me to say, why don't we do a Rabindrasangeet? Like, can we do something like that? And then maybe I can sing something in my... So I have a colleague from Central, Isa Lindred Backman, and we are going to be doing Rabindrasangeet with a folk treatment of Finnish and of Swedish. And then we're going to be taking that to that side of the world. So, little things like this. And I just hope that a spark kind of, ignites, and this can go beyond the diaspora that we're talking about. But of course, it's so important for the diaspora itself to be behind it, because I never want to lose touch with the roots of it. And so again, of course, you'll think I'm only saying this because I'm sitting here with a Tagorean, but the Tagoreans, the kind of work that you're doing, that I think really is an offshoot. I mean, I think I'm kind of living proof of that, aren't I? That's the kind of work that you're promoting and that you're doing. So I just hope that the diaspora really, lends its support to what we're trying to do.
That sounds really exciting, Sasha. We'll look forward to your future projects.
Thank you. সঙ্গে থাকতে হবে কিন্তু।
নিশ্চয়। আর আজকে তোমাকে তো তোমার গান না শুনে তোমাকে তো ছেড়ে দিতে পারি না। লাস্ট একটা রিকোয়েস্ট, যে কোনো তোমার পছন্দের যে কোনো একটা গান, would love to listen.
Of course, and before I do, I just have to thank you and thank the Tagoreans. It's not often that you get the chance to speak your heart out, and in this day and age, everyone's clicking through everything and moving past. So this long conversation where I was able to discuss this, it really means a lot. So thank you very much. কবে আমি বাহির হলেম তোমারি গান গেয়ে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়, ভুলে গেছি কবে থেকে আসছি তোমায় চেয়ে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়, কবে আমি বাহির হলেম তোমারি গান গেয়ে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়, ঝরনা যেমন বাহিরে যায়, জানে না সে কাহারে চায়, তেমনি করে ধেলেম জীবন ধারাবে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়। জিজাদি, কবে আমি বাহির হলেম তোমারি গান গেয়ে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়, কবে আমি বাহির হলেম তোমারি গান গেয়ে, সে তো আজকে নয়, সে আজকে নয়।
Sasha, it was lovely singing with you, and thank you for this delightful conversation.
Always my pleasure, and to many, many more occasions.
Absolutely. And we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
That's all for today, friends. Stay tuned to the Tagoreans and our conversation series, Timeless Tagore, Chiroshoka, where we will keep bringing to you various different personalities in the fields of music, dance, art, culture, literature, theatre, and education, who have been playing a vital role in keeping Tagore timeless in our societies. Until next time, goodbye and namaskar.